Class, let us begin a new chapter in English literature. So, what are you anyway? This is the name of the lesson. Here, the narrator says, I believe that there comes a time in life when everyone grows up. I find it to be almost odd because there isn't a certain age that one automatically grows up. Not even at the age of 18. You did not wake up on your 18th birthday and have this amazing aha light bulb moment like they portray in the movies. Over time, you and I simply get a deeper, more meaningful understanding of the world and life for what it truly is. Sometimes I believe being a child and being innocent is so much easier, and I would give anything to go back to those days. However, being so naive in such an immense world as this definitely has its own discomforts and unsettling attributes. One would begin to believe that a child would not have to grow up so quickly or understand a world so degrading and horrific. But in a world such as this, ignorance cannot and will not always be bliss. I believe no one should feel persecuted about is their skin complexion, especially if it is a child. The story I analyzed was So What Are You Anyway by Lawrence Hill. The theme is prejudice, learning to not judge a boy by its cover. Book by its cover, sorry. Learning to not to judge a book by its cover. The story begins with a little girl named Carol. Carol is seated in seat number 12A, right by a window with her little doll named Amy. Carol is a beautiful mixed girl whom her parents love. She examines her handful of freckles, which are tiny ink spots dotting her cheeks. She checks for pimples but finds none. Only the clear complexion that her father sometimes calls milk, 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 chocolate, as he burrows into her neck with kisses. So, this is from the chapter written by Hill. The story continues with a white couple who I would assume to be fairly young, questioning her about her complexion. They asked Carol that if she were to have a coloring book, what color would she proceed to color her parents? Carol, being as young and she didn't understand, she was by herself on this flight going to visit her grandparents. She answered, saying, I never use just one color. So, this is also from the line from the textbook. After stating that she would color her father brown and her mother yellow or red, she is completely baffled and has more than enough. Nothing got to me more in this story than where it says Carol feels ashamed at her stupidity. A tear races down her cheek. So, this is also from the textbook. That bothers me because no child should be made to feel ashamed because of who they are or their complexion. No child nor person should be judged for how they look, just as you would not judge a book by its cover. You should not judge a person based on their color. That's a very valuable lesson for everyone and anyone to learn. As the stewardess begins to take Carol to sit somewhere, stewardess means here the servant or the nurse, else and calm down. The story ends by the lady, Mrs. Norton, telling her husband, talk about sensitive. So, this is also line from there. However, I feel if anyone were in that situation, they would be upset. I believe that the cultural theme is very much present in this story. I think it's true. It shows that the view of life is completely altered based on one's age. I think Carol was so good at portraying this. She was so naive and innocent, and that changes her viewpoint on everything. I also believe that this story proves that in our human nature, we are also quick to judge and make assumptions and have biased approaches to situations without ever giving anyone or life a chance to speak for itself. So, dear students, let us further have some more summary. The story, so what are you anyway, by Lawrence Hill is about racism. A young girl named Carol is seated next to a couple named Henry and Betty Norton who question her about her race. Race means here the category. Carol, being a child, doesn't understand the concept of race or why it would matter to these complete strangers. They continue to pester her and ask her intrusive questions when they are aware that she doesn't understand and that she doesn't feel comfortable about the questions they are asking her. For example, they said things like, you know, what are you? What race? They continue to verbally harass this young girl even though they realize that she doesn't understand what race is by saying, say you had a coloring book. What color would you make your dad? Carol says that she feels as if he is asking her a bad question. It is as if he is asking her something dirty or touching her in a bad place. When Mr. Norton asked her about her race, Carol finally has had enough of their questions and burst asking how they would feel if she did the same to them. In the end, Carol gets moved to a different seat, and the Mrs. Norton telling her husband, "Talk about sensitive," which one only proves that they are still ignorant as to why their actions were wrong. They didn't comprehend me they didn't understand that their behavior was not only invasive but disrespectful and completely unnecessary. So here we can watch that the theme of racism. So I believe racism is the main theme of the story. The couple could see from Carol's complexion that she is of mixed race. However, they still bombarded her with questions. They asked her if her father was a Negro and if her mom was Chinese, which are very straightforward and invasive questions. The story proves that people's ignorance allows them to judge a book by its cover. Uh, it also shows the innocence of children. Carol was confused by their offensive questions because she did not care if her parents were from different races. Another theme is discrimination. Discrimination is very evident theme in the story because the couple found it strange and unbelievable that a black man married a white woman. If a white child was sitting next to the couple, they would not have asked her these comfortable questions. So this further proves the couple's discrimination towards people of color. Next is here she is child around the age of 11 or 13. She is mixed. She is the protagonist of the story. Protagonist means the person who is in lead role. So characters are here. The antagonist of the story, she is married to Henry. She is insensitive and racist. Betty and Norton are there, and the antagonist is inconsiderate and racist. So related to a person of mixed white and black ancestry, especially a person with one white and one black parent, and new vocabs are here. So author's background is nothing but Lawrence is the son of two immigrants. He is a mulatto because his mom was white and his father was black. His parents worked on several human rights movement which inspired many of his work. When he was younger, he wanted to pursue running but he wasn't that good, so resigned himself to writing. His personal life. He has worked in many countries such as Canada, Spain, and France. He is the author of 10 books, including the novels The Book of Negroes and The Illegal. He won the Rogers Writers Trust Fiction Prize, the Commonwealth Writers Prize for Best Book, and both CBC Radio's Canada Reads and Radio Canada's Combat Deliveries. Even professional life, the story begins with a little girl named Carol sitting on an airplane. She is traveling alone to visit her grandparents. A white couple sit next to her and start talking about her. They ask her questions like, "What would you color your father on a coloring book?" The little girl gets fed up with their invasive questions and yell for them to stop. The stewardess then asks the girl to come sit next to her. She agrees and leaves the couple. So some of the critics they can say uh, that racism and ethnic discrimination in the North America has been a biggest issue since the colonial times. The segregation continues to take place in many social areas such as housing, education, employment, especially for Afro American people. 1970s was the crucial time of the racism. Many students killed by the National Guards in US during their protest against racial injustice. The violence followed by the civil rights movement and caused awakenings of the anti-racist ideology in literature because white against black was not a determinable social impact. The mixed race Canadian author Lawrence Hill's works are irreplicable examples of the awareness of violent racism. The conflict in this story is racism, and the other clarified this conflict by using racist words such as Negro. Mulatto, when you say brown, do you mean he is a Negro? So you are mixed, you are a mulatto, means these are the lines from the text. So he also uses symbolism like Carol's black doll to make it clear the discriminative behavior of people. It is also a metaphor when Mr. and Mrs. Norton are harassing Carol due to her doll is black and also her father is black. That's a Negro doll. That's a race. Negro, what's your race? The author uses emphatic tone to influence reader about racism. The empathy appears especially in Carol's monologues. Monologues means dialogues, self-spoken. How would you like it if happened to you? So what are you anyway? What are your parents? How would you color them? Well, I don't care. I don't even care. Also, he is analyzing the human psychology about how people willing to see themselves more superior than others. Most people like separate people about their racial identity. The author shows actually racism is so primitive and crucial because of nobody born as racist. The society and the system teaches discrimination. You know what you are, what race. Carol's mouth drops race. What is that? She doesn't understand, yet she senses that the man is asking bad questions. Now we would talk about the author's writing style. The author's writing style allows the reader to deeply inspect into character analysis. The story also educates a reader historically about how people's outlook about racial identities in 1970s. It shows the reader there are two different groups of people that who start to understand that it is wrong to separate people with their racial identity and who still thinks that to be black is enough miserable. So by racism is awful. The author himself is mixed race person, so his point of view is by racialism always attract extra attention, mostly in a negative way in the society. However, he also pointed that this pessimism about biracial people starts to change that appears on mirror characters protective behavior to Carol. So hopefully all the students would be able to understand while reading the whole chapter either within self or loudly and then go through this video. So thank you students.